Good evening. Welcome to the Lapid Monkey Music Show too. I'm Chuck Garric. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good. I'm really good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm glad to have you on. I mean, you've played with some fantastic musicians through your career, and you still are, and you have a great band. You know, it stands alone. It's not like it's a side project. It's a very solid band. We talk about
Uh,
Beasto Blanco, and obviously there's a huge overlap with the Alice Cooper family. Obviously, and I say family, I also mean musicians, and it's all encompassing, really.
it is.
It
Yeah.
is. But one of the things before anybody to know a little history, I want to say just touch on it. Actually, I'll even reference it back. Go back if you want a deep history. Go see Ryan Roxy's podcast on this. You were actually in LA Guns for a hot minute before they did one of the reforming, which
Yeah.
is pretty funny. I think almost everybody's been in LA Guns at this point. I actually think you have to be in LA Guns to be a musician in
Sure.
LA for a hot minute. And I love LA Guns, so to me, it's just like it's cool. But you actually went from LA Guns into Dio. I mean, that's
Right.
pretty
I
cool.
mean, that was probably and still is one of the most pinch me moments that's ever happened in my life. I just quick back history is that I grew up a kid in a really small town. Not a lot of music happening in the town I grew up in, but I listened to a lot of music, a lot of records, and a lot of just in with Queen and Alice Cooper, Kiss, Ted Nugent, AC/DC, Beatles, of course, Rolling Stones, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But there was a band I got turned on to at an early age, which was Sabbath,
Yep.
who I loved with Ozzy. Then learned about Ronnie, and then as soon as his solo stuff came out, I was the first to jump on it. Then after the solo stuff, I discovered more of even deeper the stuff that he did with Rainbow, and I just fell in love with Ronnie's voice and his lyrics and his melodies, everything about him. And what appealed to me the most was not only how Ronnie sang in his songs, but also the sound of Jimmy Bain's bass.
Yeah.
It was just very unique. Holy Diver just really just shifted a lot of things for me musically. Um, I had a mutual friend who was Jimmy Bain's bass tech at the time, or bass tech for whoever was in Dio. I just gotten off tour with LA Guns. We did a 3-month run, and they were reforming as the originals. So I was I got a call from Wendy Dio, who said that they were auditioning bass players, and my name was brought up, and they'd like for me to come down. And she asked if I was available. I said absolutely. She gave me a list of songs
Hmm.
to learn. I think it was like four or five songs, which I pretty much knew already, that was exciting at the time. So I went down. I auditioned for Ronnie. It was Craig Goldie and Scott Warren and Simon Wright.
Yeah.
And we did an audition in the San Fernando Valley. The audition went very well. I thought I played really well. And Ronnie asked me after the audition a little bit about myself and what I'm up to, and asked me if I was busy in October, November, December. They were going to Scandinavia, a Norwegian tour with Motorhead and Manowar. Again, Motorhead was one of those bands that just,
Yeah.
was everything for me. I was like, yeah, I'm available. And Ronnie asked me if I had a passport. And I said, yeah, of course I do. And I didn't. I didn't have a passport. I had never even left the country before that time. So I immediately got in the car, went straight to wherever it was to get my passport picture taken and all that good stuff. And waited a couple of days to get everything in order. I was learning Dio songs and all of that, and I went to the mailbox. There was my passport, and at the same time, my phone rang, where it was Ronnie's management office asking me for my passport information. So they asked me for my passport number. I gave it to them. They asked me the date it was issued, which was the date of that day, which I found to be hilarious. So anyway, they never said anything, but yeah, it all worked out well, and that tour changed my life. I did that tour with Ronnie, and it was fantastic. And we did some amazing shows out there in Sweden and Norway, Copenhagen. Just had a fantastic time. I really learned how to um, focus and really get into my instrument and what I'm supposed to be doing. I played my heart out for Ronnie. He really, because he gave so much on stage that it really shaped me as a person and as a musician, to be mistake free, to be the best I could be every night. It really was a real pleasure to play with him, but also, like I said, he brought the best out in me. Later on that year, they did another tour in support of the Magica album, which I
Yeah,
really, tell a lot of people that they should go back and listen to that album. You
yeah,
know,
I agree. I agree with you on
very
that one.
cool record, with a great concept. So in support of the Magica record, we did Japan and a full European tour, and that was just, again, I got to see parts of the world I never thought I would see. I was on tour with my friends. The cool thing about Ronnie was at that time, the crew and the band all traveled together on one bus. So we were just having way too much fun back then. And from there, after the Dio tour ended, Ronnie started working on the last Dio solo record
Yep.
called Master of the Moon. And I brought in a song which later turned out to be Death by Love, which was co-written by myself and Ronnie and Craig.
Nice.
Jeff Pilson played bass on it. Just fantastic song, and just such an honor to be part of that history.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
before we move any forward, this question actually came up before, and I heard you talk to this before. Like, as a musician, and you're like the king, and a lot of you guys are, of being able to jam and knowing you probably know like a million songs of other artists. You know, when you learn them, and then like as an artist, and you have to do like, you have to play for, for Ronnie or for Alice, and you've known these songs for years. Is it ever a point where you play it and it's like you actually play with the band itself, and they're like, yeah, it's not the same thing, or it's a little different, or is it pretty much what you know is what you know coming in? You know what I'm saying? Like the difference of the songs.
Well, first of all, there are guys out there that know a million songs. I don't know a million songs. I've always been a band guy. So I've learned to play music by learning from other artists, and
Mhm.
I wish I knew more songs, or I have learned probably a million songs, but,
It feels like you do. I see a
some
lot.
of
I
it,
think you do a
some
lot
of
of
it
songs.
sticks, some of it sticks and some of it doesn't,
Yeah.
it's about repetition for me. I have to do things over and over and over again in order for them to start to embed themselves inside of my mind and my
Yeah.
hands. I like the feeling of um, playing songs and not thinking about playing the song.
Muscle memory type of stuff.
It's muscle memory, but it's also feel. So
Yeah.
you mentioned, with bands, and you know what you know, or it is what it is. The key for me has always been able to be very flexible,
Mhm.
and not really necessarily holding anybody accountable for what they know or don't know, or how they play it or don't play it. It's more about the molding and the blending in musically. For me, has always been very exciting because there's always musicians coming and going. So of course, somebody different, this drummer compared to that drummer is going to have a different feel, even though it's the same exact song. It's going to be played different. There could be at times different kick
Yeah.
drum patterns, obviously different feels, things like that. Guitar players have a tendency to, some guys will, rush or be really laid back or play their solos, and want to catch what the drummer's doing. Some of them are on their own, and they want the band to sort of follow them. And that's the cool thing about being a bass player, is you get to sort of just mold in and just I've been musically. So anyway, but being able to mold like that and be able to become part of the music is something that has always appealed to me more so than the actual just playing the song. So I've learned a lot from jamming with different people, different musicians, and some have really shaped me and changed me as a musician for the better, and some have just been parts of the song and of the experience. So Ronnie was one of those guys that I really felt like I was the in the song at that time. I really learned that, like that I was listening to everything around me. I just wasn't in my own bit going, oh, I got to play this song. I got to play that bit. This, or don't forget this riff. Don't forget that. I was in it. And that's important to become part of that when you're a band, when you have a band or you're a musician, just check out of the real world for a little while, man, and become part of the song you're playing.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you for that perspective. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting. I always, well, because you play musician, let's face it, like music and tabs and everything else back in the day, there wasn't, even the tab books weren't right or whatever. And nowadays, artists are like, I go on Ultimate Guitar, or I go on YouTube to learn my own solos now before I go on tour.
Yeah. Well,
Early on, you guys didn't have that, you know?
yeah, I would date myself a little bit, but there's no doubt I had to rely on my ears, and I had to learn by really listening. I was talking about this to Alice today,
Yeah.
at his house, by the way. Um, but we were talking about music and um, how listening. We were hanging out, and a friend of ours brought up a song on his boombox, and he's like, and I said, "Oh, listen to that bass part." And he goes, "Oh, that's bass." And it's a classic rock song. Matter of fact, it was Stranglehold by Ted Nugent. And I
Okay.
said, "Yeah,
Yeah.
bass right there." And he goes, "Oh man, I never knew that. I thought that was guitar." And I said, "No, it's bass." And he's a musician, kind of noodles around on the guitar. He said, "Wow, I'm going to start listening differently." And I said, "Yeah, when you listen to songs, it's fun to just hone in on one instrument. Just listen to that one instrument for the entire time you listen to the song." And that's what gives you the ear training. I really had to focus on what the bass was doing. And then later on, and then you can go back, once you learn it, then you can go back and listen to the guitar, listen to the drums, listen to the vocals, and you can start to dive into why that was played that way,
Mhm.
you know? Because there's always a million things you can do. You can always play a run or fill or whatever you want to do in between parts, but maybe there wasn't one there, or there was, and why was it there, and played like that. So it's kind of cool to dive in that way.
I think it's very interesting because the bass players really, it's really such a great aspect because of the seat. You're like, where you can play yourself in the back, up with the band. You can do fills. There's a lot of different things that can be added or taken away with the bass in a song that don't jump out, but you know it because you'll be tapping it or humming it to yourself without realizing it's a big part of the song. And I'll do
Yeah,
that where
it's
I'll
definitely,
focus in, like
yeah.
working in the studio, I'd focus in on something to the point where sometimes I'm like, I can't hear that song now without hearing that drum cymbal, without hearing the ride, the crash in every song now, or hearing that bass line.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot of that. I mean, Paul McCartney's the king of it, right? I mean,
Oh
you
God.
could probably sing a Beatles song, but you will probably, and most people will remember the bass part.
Yeah.
It was such a part of the song. Queen was really like that for me. And then if you
Yeah.
want to go all the way to like even, you know, get more into the metal side of things. I mean, look what Steve Harris did for Iron Maiden. How important his parts were to those songs and to that groove. I mean, that gallop and sound that's bass. That's what kind of gets the people moving. And I think it's really important. Part of the thing that makes you a successful bass player, or makes you a good bass player, well, actually, could make you a great bass player is, like I said, is you have to become part of what's happening around you. There are times you're going to want to direct and lead, and other times you're going to just want to become part of it. And when you become part of it, you realize that you're listening to everything that's going on around you. You're listening to the drums, kick and snare, you're listening to what the guitar player is doing, maybe the rhythm player. You and I are supposed to be, him and I are supposed to be playing different parts together. It's this guy's going to take a lead. The vocals are happening. If you listen to everything that's going on around you, you become part of it. You're able to take it to another level musically. You're going to be in the pocket. You're going to be in the groove. You're going to be relaxed. Then the guitar player can start focusing. He can start doing his solos, and he's going to be listening to his solo. He's going to be doing that. And then that gives you the chance to really listening to what he's playing, because maybe there's something that you guys can do together for that quick second that you don't think is going to happen, but all of a sudden here it comes. You feel it, boom, you do it, he does it. It's magic. And that's what music is. It's magical. It's this moment in time where people can meld together and be creative. And you have this 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, to just make this magical musical piece happen that's just going out in the universe. So you should really, really think about what you're playing when you're playing, and not just listening to yourself and, going, oh, check out how cool I am, or look at my moves, or, I learned this riff, so I'm going to play it. But if it doesn't fit the song, it doesn't fit the song. Become part of the song.
That's actually awesome. That's like one of the best explanations I've heard. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm inspiring myself right now.
I'm always saying you need to, as a musician, and some of the best songs are, you need to serve the song. Otherwise, you're not doing it. Why are you even doing
Absolutely. Why do it, man? And there's a time for everyone to shine and to show everybody, what they can do musically. Sure, we want to show off a little bit. I personally have never really been that type of musician or even person necessarily. I've always, just like I said, musically, there's a lot of bass players that have influenced me. But
it?
before bass, I was a band guy. I love bands. So,
How many? While we're on that topic of how many instruments do you play? Because I know you obviously you're one talk about that. You're a great singer. What else do you play?
Well, my main instrument is bass guitar. I
Right.
started off as a trumpet player. I haven't played trumpet in years, but I started off as a trumpet player, played guitar, played bass guitar. I've taught myself guitar. I even taught myself banjo for a little while. But
That's hard.
primarily
That's a hard.
bass guitar, and when I say guitar, it's rhythm
Yeah.
guitar, some, maybe harmonies here and there, but Beasto sort of allows me to be this sort of painter with guitar. I'm a little bit more abstract with my parts at times. I will play mostly the same part all the time, but there's times where I have some liberties, because I kind of find myself, because it's such a new instrument to me still, that, I can take little risks here and there, some rhythm parts and in between parts and things like that. So my brother Latham, he loves it. He loves the way I play, so he allows me to do these things and gets a kick out of it. So I get to kind of be more of like this, different musician when I play guitar with Beasto. And then singing as well, which is something I enjoy.
How long's that been going on? Because what's really great. Actually, before I say ask you anymore, with your voice, and we were talking about off the air. You have you have a really strong voice, a really good voice. It's not like some artists be like, I'm a bass player and I have a side band and I sing, and then some guys just sing good. They're good singers and it's a good album. But you have a really, really good voice. It's like beyond just a bass player. You could just be a singer in your own thing and be known as just a singer. What I'm saying,
Yeah,
not just a bass player that can sing.
right.
Um,
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot, because that was a big thing for me to step into that spotlight. I've always been a guy, backing people up as a bass player, and I love to sing. And Beasto, I put myself right into the limelight, didn't I? Playing guitar and singing, it was just like, man, you really want a challenge, bro. So I did, and it's become a lot more familiar for me. Like I was saying, becoming part of the music. A lot of mistakes I made when I first started singing and playing guitar in Beasto was, man, I was so focused on how I was playing or how I was singing, and I was forgetting lyrics. I was playing terrible guitar parts. I was just having a rough show for a long time trying to make that change. And it was just like way too much thought going into everything I was doing. And until I learned to relax and just become part of the song, now it has become extremely enjoyable. And I feel like I can sing every night. I don't need days off.
Right.
I feel very confident about singing and playing my guitar parts but it took me a while to really learn how that felt. And I had to kind of go back to.
Was it hard to change? Like, because
It
well,
was
you
very
do
hard.
bass, you do
Yeah,
bass, and you do background vocals, so you kind of that's what's one of the biggest
yeah,
challenge. Like, a guitar players, they'll start being they're known as a guitar player, then they go become vocalists, and they're like, I'm a great guitar player and I'm a good singer or whatever. But to do it at the same time is like one of the hardest things to do.
very
Uh,
hard for me. It was something that it just felt so foreign. I play bass a certain way. I do have a tendency to dig in at times. All of a sudden now I'm playing chords, and you have to play guitar differently than you play bass. Everything just felt awkward. Shorter guitar, then the neck felt weird. I felt weird moving. I still kind of feel a little bit weird moving because I'm used to this bigger, thicker piece of wood. But that as soon as I started to really just spend some time practicing and doing and learning in front of an audience was just so crazy. Um, I I really did have to practice a lot when it came to that singing and playing, because I sing a very aggressive in a way, but
mhm.
not, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
I have a powerful voice. And when you do project like that, it is, you're leaning into it, but I'm also playing really light when I'm playing guitar and singing this way. So it's, there's this sort of ambidextrous type thing that's happening for me. I have to learn to kind of separate the two.
Right.
Uh, and I learned how to do it. I know, well, hey, how it works for me. So that's what I've been, and so now playing guitar has been a lot easier. So, the moral of the story is, I guess just because you do one thing and you do it well, I consider myself a very good bass player. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm a great guitar player or a good guitar player. I have to still practice at it, and I do. And the great way to learn to get through it is do it in front of people.
What made you decide you were going to be a singer? I mean, because you have like a really strong voice, and one of the things with your voice is like, and people go listen to these albums. They have a couple albums out, and the newest one is really good. And on there, on the 219 release, it's a song called Down, and
Yeah,
you really have some different dimensions to your voice. And I also realized that one of the albums I listened to, you have a similarity at one point. I'm sure your voice blends very well with Alice too. So
yeah,
that's totally acid because you have a few different tones in your voice that you can do
yeah,
it a couple different things.
yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of bands that kind of they sounded like different singers
Yeah.
in a way, or sometimes they were. But
Mhm.
growing up, I loved Billy Gibbons. I loved his singing style, and it kind of had this deeper resonance to it, but he also sang kind of clean and the
Right.
higher. I know Dusty did a lot of the high harmonies and stuff, but Billy had a cool vocal tone that I really loved. Um, of course, I when I was a young kid, loved Gene Simmons. Loved that type of vocal tone that he would do. And truth be known, I'm a massive Rob Zombie fan. I've loved White Zombie when they came out. I love that stuff so much. So I just sort of started to develop, what it was that I was doing at that time. So, but I also realized that when I was singing like that, and you'll hear it on that first Beasto record, I'm really digging in, and I couldn't keep that up live. I had to find the happy medium, and I realized I didn't have to push so hard, or I could sing certain ways and certain things I could, I'd have to change a little bit here and there. Learn how to write differently to, give myself some chance to breathe. All of that stuff. And on top of it, what I love so much about the vocal tonality of, say, like Kiss, ZZ Top, you know, bunch of these other bands that had multiple singers was the reason why I brought Calico Cooper in. One of the reasons why I brought Calico Cooper in, because I really wanted to shake things up a little bit. I needed that totally different vocal sound than me because
Yeah.
I needed you could sing harmonies and also sing their own songs, and then I could sing harmonies with them. But just to give myself a break and give the audience a totally different sonic experience, because at the end of the day, I want to entertain people. I want to give them something that you can only do so much as a one singer band.
Well, obviously, even without Calco, you were a strong band, and I think after you can step back, even you saying Rob Zombie fan, you can feel the influence on some of the songs, but there's you have so many other influences. But to be honest, you can hear, and there's a lot of bands that just try to do Rob Zombie, and it's weak, it's lame. But when you guys, what you're doing is you can hear it's in there, but I hear a lot of the bands in there too, and then I hear you have your own sound because your voice also. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
much more of interpretation of a bunch of different artists, a bunch of different spices together, and then you create your own spice type of deal. Because you don't sound like any particular band to me, you know. And then
thank
you
you.
put
Well,
Calco in there, and it
yeah,
sounds like I'm like I don't know do this at all.
I know I feel the same way when she sings. You're like, what? This is epic. This is amazing because it does sound so original. And thank you for that. But we are all walking influences of things that have happened to us that have moved us. I mean, we cannot say that these bands, you're not going to hear influences that have happened to me in my life that I love, because I want to take from those experiences and then make them into who I am,
Mhm.
how I envision it. So that's how music and art and everything is created. You have to have somewhere a starting point. And that's the beauty of Beasto. Is the cool thing about Beasto is I guarantee you the 3 studio albums that we have out right now, all 3 sound completely different, but they sound like the
Yeah.
same. And we're working on our latest record right now, and it is epic, and it's going to be so different in its own right. But man, it sounds just like Beasto. But we're really honing in what we're about, which is exciting.
Well, I do hear the continuity, and I do hear the song difference and the production difference. I mean, great production on all the albums. I think what you're laughing about Zombie. I don't want to say this. I think what happens is everyone can hear different influences, but with Zombie, it feels like it's a softer thing because Zombie's a newer band. Like you're like, oh, I hear the Zeppelin influence, I hear the Sabbath influence, I hear the Dio influence. They were back in the '70s. Zombie was the forefront of his own sound that a lot of people picked up to. So it just feels like it's fresh for some people. So I think for some people, like, oh, I'm like, no, that was not, and it was a while ago if you think about it. I'm in my 50s. I'm like, it was not 5 years ago. You know,
Yeah,
it just happens to
he,
be another sonic sound added to your
yeah,
palette that some people are
he's
more
very
familiar with.
unique. I
Yeah,
think I love Rob so much. We've become friends through the years, and I love how he obviously you can say, oh, he kind of reminds you of Alice or whatever. The only thing that I get from Alice with the influence that with Rob has, because we've talked about this. He loved Alice Cooper, was inspired by him, but he made it his own, and he went off of his own love for horror and art and his own interpretation of all of this stuff, and he has stuck with it.
mm-hmm.
He's never changed anything about who he was. Even if you listen to White Zombie, you listen to Rob Zombie, this guy lyrically and musically has stuck to what he loves to do and what he does so well. And you either love it or you hate it.
He's
I
grown too, though. I mean,
I
from the early
love
White Zombie, was it,
his latest record, the
oh
latest
yeah.
record that just did. Man, I just listened to it the other day, and I listen to it all the time. To me, it's exciting. I love it. I'm a massive fan. So
No, I agree with you. Well, I think I'm saying even the early White Zombie, like the
yeah,
few songs, when he started watching the evolution of him to what he did
yeah,
is great. Because I mean, early White Zombie is not what he sounds like now, but you can hear the core of it. The seed is in there of
yeah,
what it is. It's not you're not like I don't get it. You're like, oh, that was pretty neat to watch that tree grow.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what
Still, if you listen to it, it's still the same approach. He still
right?
does these. crazy weird intros, little middle parts with with you know some horror movie thing in the middle of it. He still does that, and it's just gotten more and more produced better or differently or whatever. But lyrically, it's been the same thing,
Yeah.
and something that's just resonated with me, and I love it.
I
I
think it's
love
a
you.
good influence. I think you having that piece of it is definitely a piece of flattery because it's not because you have so many other sounds in you. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. It's
how
just
many?
one for me. It's a Rob is one piece of something else that I do. There's certain guys that I love, maybe just a song or two that they've done, and I'm not necessarily a massive fan, but there's certain things that they've done that I love that I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. I'm a massive fan of Rammstein and Danzig and all these other bands out there because with that tone, that sound, with that type of singer and this type of background and this type of guitar tone and put a solo here and have this kind of groove. So you just kind of blend all these ideas together and boom, it could become a Beasto song.
Your voice and your music still has. I think the other thing is because it has a '70s influence and '80s influence, which is what I love about it. And a
Uh,
lot of bands nowadays have more of an emo sound or this sound or whatever. And I think that's the other thing that puts you in a rare category back because, well, the same thing with Rob's sound or other bands from then. It still has that that same strong voice. And there's not a lot of bands that have that same voice that are doing the chugging along, that are doing these time changes. You know, there's a fine group of people doing that, and you're one of them now. So it kind of puts you in that lineup of everybody. You know what I mean? So
Thank you.
you know,
I'm trying.
you're doing. You're not trying. You just
I
do.
do what I do, and that's it. And I will always try to do more. I'll always try to think of different melodies and different ways to approach songs. I really love writing with other people. So, yeah, I'll always be just like I am a person who's always working on himself. I'm always working on my craft as well.
How does it work? Because like when you started, you got into when did you actually get into Alice? I don't even know what year it was. So bad. How long
I
were you
think
and
it
Alice?
was 2002 or something like that.
And it wasn't that long after you started doing the band, right? So when did you do like how did it evolve?
Beasto,
What was
Beasto
the start?
started in like 2012,
Okay,
2013.
wasn't too long. I mean, to go on your own. I mean, to it wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Considering it's a pretty big. You were a pretty big band, pretty well known to also be like I'm going to be a singer and a guitar player now.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was kind of a quick window if you think about it for that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. 2012, 2013, we have 3 records out, one live album. We've been fortunate enough to tour the world and
How did that happen? With
gonna
like,
do
and
more.
then get Calco in there and the whole band. Like, you're like, you know what? I want to be writing and doing this and fitting it in between this whole thing. How does that work? Like, you know what I mean? The dynamic of that.
How did Beasto come? How did Beasto
Yeah, I'm
work?
kind of curious how it came apart. Yeah, yeah, how it kind of fit in
Well,
because
there's a certain element. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna become a product of my environment. So with Alice being, like somebody that I work with and have worked with for 20 plus years, who I just, love to death. I just have nothing but just, the utmost respect for his career, what him and Shep and Bob Ezrin have done.
mhm.
Um, I was a guy paying attention for a lot of years, and I still am, of what they're doing and how they do it. So, for me, it was, coming from Dio and Alice Cooper and loving the bands that I love, there was definitely going to be some sort of theatrical or show part of what I do. If I'm going to be part of something, if I'm going to do something, it's going to be a bam, it's going to get you. It's not just going to be, a no disrespect to anybody out there that does this. It just wasn't who I wanted to be musically. I need there to be a show. Those are the bands I love. So but I also wanted there to be musicality and
Mhm.
art and like just a sense of Beasto. I wanted a band. I wanted Beasto to be a band where, people are watching and they're doing this to most bands. I want people to go, what am I watching? I want them to lean into it and be like, holy shit, this is so different. And that's when I brought in Calico, because she brings in her own thing, I can say, hey, I've got this song called Machine Girl. And then she goes and just turns it off, turns it on into something where like she created this entire world around it. And now this is this person that she's become on stage. She was able to, she's not a person that says no or is turned off by ideas. She takes that idea and goes with it and shapes it into something cool and not afraid to try something and go, well, that didn't work. I'll try this. And then it just becomes this cool piece of the show puzzle that we have. And I love that about her. I can give her an idea and she will turn it into something else, or she'll have an idea and we just say go. We trust her completely. She's directing our videos. She's massively involved in our, especially in her clothing designs and the look of the band, but also she's, starting to really get into songwriting, and she brings us really cool element. Her music library is so vast and so different from the rest of ours that it's really cool little element of what we have. So for me, I just wanted somebody who could bring something that nobody else was doing to the table. And fortunately for me, I knew the exact person.
Well, it's incredible and it's lucky. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of it because you're in a situation that's allowed that band to foster because, and even your supporting players in your in Alice's band is going to allow you to be in this band. Everyone in the band you're in is their own, not star, but their own icon from their own playing and who they are because of their skill set, but because of the kindness and openness. So you've got in such an environment where like your day job and this job, everyone's
Yeah.
really into it, which
Yeah.
fosters such a great, let's do this, let's try this. There's no
Yeah.
nothing negative, and that's fantastic. And I think that's why your band is being prolific and just keeps growing because there's no one
Yeah.
stopping you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have anything in our way. We're just going to go. And if it feels good, we're doing it.
Because who's usually the band's worst enemy? The band, you know?
Well, yeah, you can get in your own way. That is true. And I have been victim of that where you start, you write something a certain way and that's just the way you can only hear it. And unfortunately, that is it could be good and it could be bad. It
Right.
depends how you guys want to go about it. Um, so we get stuck in our ways at times. I definitely get stuck in. I hear something a certain way, and
Yeah.
it be a little bit of a fight to have me try to do something a certain way. But most of the time, it's you that's how you figure it out. You have to at least try it. And I would say, especially on the last We Are record, Ryan Green had me singing all kinds of different ways. And I said yes to everything he wanted me to try. And even he'll admit to you, hey, that didn't work, but at least we tried it, so it's better than me saying no and stopping the flow.
Well, it's
Cause
good.
I
And
didn't know.
I was actually thinking like more like negative egos and like what I mean, that kind of stuff. As an artist, you write songs. It's healthy to fight. It's healthy to fight over a song. I'm talking about
Yeah.
like more of an ego thing. You don't have to do that. It's more of a songwriting, creative
Yeah.
push
Yeah.
pull. It's
We
a little
try to,
different.
the ego's always, yeah, always there. I think it's something that we all battle with. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're very right. There has been egos that have killed bands, um, or forced ideas, but that's just part of being an artist. It's part of being a confident
Well,
person.
I'm saying on the outside for me, and listening to those three albums, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of people pushing back on something that would be totally left turn. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like it's like, no, this is gonna be this. This is my voice. You're like, because the next song is not gonna be anything like the song you just heard.
Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
there's a thread of continuity, but it's not gonna be the same. You
Yeah,
know,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
it's your songs, and I'm just that's how I feel. I mean, it's not. I don't even know how would you go into the studio. I was like, I think like some of our favorite albums, especially from the '70s. You look at how the songs are done. Just like you look at the song list, how it goes in the order, and picking out songs. Where are you guys going with that? Like, because like what a challenge to find songs. I wouldn't even know how to song list your songs. so it would work because it does work. But I'm like, I wouldn't have known to put that there. Rock bands, you can kind of be like, yeah, this makes sense. I get that. But you guys, I'm like, I don't know, man. You know,
I wish I had some secret formula I could give it to you and write it to you. Man, we just go off of what feels right. Everybody gets a say in this band. We're a family, and we when you're in the room, we're gonna ask you for your opinion. And
Mhm.
I look at making a record, if it's conceptual or if it's not, just looking at the songs as a whole and how do they all complement each other. If I was listening to this record as a fan, what would really get me off on making sure I listen to the song that's after it? So, I mean, that's really the only way to go about it, and trust the people around you.
When I first heard you guys, to me, what really stood out for me was I heard a lot of strong '70s influence. That's what I heard. I mean, besides the modern playing, to me, that's what I felt like it was a '70s songwriter because those are the bands that really wrote. Like you mentioned, those bands, it was Queen, and those are the bands. Obviously Alice, but just all those guys. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, we're just going to be product of what has influenced us and what has shaped us. I mean, that's the way it goes.
it's awesome. So as we wrap up, I just want to just touch on your new album. Like, so what's going on with it? Where are we at?
Yeah, we're writing right now. We've got a majority of it done. Most of almost everything is being tracked. We're still, in the process of. There's still a couple more songs we need to write,
Hmm.
just to make sure we're covering the grounds of, what we're missing, what we're not missing, what we'd like to try, see if it works, lyrically, musically. So, hoping to have it all finished up here in the next, few months, and looking forward to a 23 release.
Very cool. Any plans for any playing out it though, or does it depend on what's going on with Cooper Band
Any plans to do what?
to play out live and do any kind of playing out with it, or is it more of a it depends on what's going on right now with the world and with the Alice Cooper tour, before you can do anything?
We'll be out playing on it for sure. I mean, we're playing it so people can hear it, and not only hear it, but see it, experience it.
Well, I think it needs to be played live. That was us open for it, open to
Yeah,
hear.
we'll be out there, man, of course, for sure.
That's good news to hear. Any final words to people that may be listening to your new stuff or haven't heard you actually? I mean, that's my hope is to turn on new people that haven't heard you, that heard this band.
Check out the band, and close your eyes and enjoy the experience.
Thanks for being on the show, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, man.